Hello everyone, welcome back to the circus. I am Terrence Clown, and can you believe it's been a year already? Believe it or not, but the Nintendo Switch 2 now is officially 1 year old, and it has been an eventful year for the console. I still remember the midnight release like it was yesterday. That was a pretty unproductive 24 hours in the Terrence household. But now we're 1 year later, and what do I have to show for it? Yeah, that's about it. Now that the console finally has some games, I'm feeling a lot better about my purchase. Even though there are some problems that exist on the console, namely that there's not much Nintendo content on there. This isn't much of a Nintendo problem as they keep releasing games for the Switch. It's just that none of these games are really exclusive to the Switch 2. Sure, there are a lot of really nice upgrades for the console, like with Tears of the Kingdom, Kirby the Forgotten Land, and Mario Wonder. Though this feels like my initial problem with the Switch 2 even after a year, it still honestly feels like a Nintendo Switch Pro and not a Nintendo Switch 2. Now, why does it feel like this? Honestly, we're kind of in a weird stage of the Nintendo Switch 2's life cycle right now. Remember when the PS5 launched, and for the first 2 years, there weren't really many exclusives for the console, and what was coming to the PS5 also came to the PS4. Cut to now where the PS4 is pretty much obsolete, it's not getting many titles, and what it does get is just extra shovelware or something like that, and I think that's the same route that Nintendo is going down with the Switch 2. So like I stated before, if we look back on both the Nintendo Switch 2 and the PS5's first year, they're pretty similar, except Nintendo actually decided on releasing some games at that point, while the PS5 kind of sat in a corner collecting dust. Where the PS5 launched with 2 titles, Astro's Playroom and Demon's Souls. And if we look at the Nintendo Switch 2, that launched with Mario Kart and Donkey Kong. Well, kind of launched with Donkey Kong. That was like couple weeks after launch, but still, same thing. And sure, does the Nintendo Switch have some exclusives to the console itself that aren't Nintendo titles? Yeah, but exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2 and other consoles, just not Switch 1, like with Resident Evil 9 and Cyberpunk, but I wouldn't really count these as Switch 2 exclusives, more as Switch 2 games. But what about the third-party games that were also supposed to release in the first year of the console, like the Duskbloods? Now I'm gonna say a pretty hot take here. I think the only reason someone would buy a Nintendo console is for the Nintendo games. I know, get your pitchforks out. That was a pretty hot take. I feel like I must ask you one question. What Nintendo games have released in the Nintendo Switch 2's life cycle that have been exclusive to the Switch 2? Because if you answered more than 4, you would be wrong. And I must say, the first-party Nintendo catalog for the Switch 2 isn't bad. They're great games, but there's one major problem with them. They all have heavy multiplayer focus, except for like maybe 2. And I don't know about you, dear viewer, but I don't know how many of your friends own a Nintendo Switch 2. Nintendo's only single-player experience right now for the console, exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2, is Donkey Kong Bonanza, with Star Fox releasing later this month. When it releases, would only make 2 single-player experiences for the console. But I know what you're probably asking, what about Metroid? Well, Metroid is a single-player game for Nintendo Switch 1 and Nintendo Switch 2. What about Tomodachi Life? Well, Tomodachi Life is a Nintendo Switch 1 game. Can be played on the Switch 2, but it's a Nintendo Switch 1 game. I'm not saying these are bad games. I'm not saying that at all. It's just that they're not exclusive to the console. And I also think I have to ask this question as well. Who is this console appealing to right now? Because my question is, what kid is picking up Cyberpunk 2077? Now, is the Nintendo Switch 2 a family console? Yes. Undoubtedly, yes. But I feel like the marketing has been a little wonky since launch. It felt like at launch, Nintendo was pretty much saying, oh, you think the Nintendo Switch 1 wasn't powerful enough? Well, this bitch can play Cyberpunk. Though now it feels like they're advertising it as if it was a family console again, with little to no information on the games that are releasing for this console exclusively, like the Duskbloods. Now though, it feels like they're advertising it as a family console again, which kind of weirds it out since last year they were saying this is a big grown-up console while also being a family console at the same time. And where have we seen that last? And I feel like Nintendo is kind of sitting on the fence right now on if they want to be a fully family-friendly console or a fully mature console. For example, let's look at Resident Evil 9. Everywhere you looked, Nintendo was advertising this game was on their console. Next-gen consoles were able to play the game, and so were you on your Nintendo Switch 2. This is a huge step forward for the company. They didn't really hide anything. They showed all the animations that Leon Kennedy was doing on the zombies. They showed all the horror aspects. They were very proud of their work when getting this onto this console. Then right after that, they decided time to start advertising for the new Yoshi game. Then they had decided right after that, we gotta start advertising for Tamagotchi Life. I mean, that's literally coming out really soon. So it creates this really weird environment for the console that honestly invokes a lot of the problems that the Wii U had. One not as bad as the Wii U, but kind of similar. Did the Nintendo Switch have some mature games? Yeah, it did. But they weren't openly advertised to the public like the Nintendo Switch 2 is doing. Though if you look at the Nintendo Switch 2 now, it kind of creates this weird juxtaposition. Now, do I feel like the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to go down the same route as the Wii U? No, absolutely not. This console is already doing so much better than that one. But I do feel that the Nintendo Switch 2 isn't different enough to be calling it the Nintendo Switch 2, and I think that's the same problem that Nintendo had with the Wii U. That being the Nintendo Switch 2's biggest problem is its identity crisis. Though I don't want to dive too far into the identity crisis because it's really not that important, honestly. It's just a little gripe that I have because I just haven't been really seeing any real exclusive Nintendo content on this console. So what has changed on this console since the release? Well, yeah, so the major change with the Nintendo Switch 2? Price increase. I mean, come on, it was inevitable. Now, I couldn't imagine why. It's not like we're having a major RAM shortage and we're having multiple tariffs all over the place thanks to very loving people. Yes, due to the demanding price of RAM and the constantly fluctuating tariffs, the Nintendo Switch 2 is getting a price increase of $50, making it a base $500 with no game, which I can definitely say is a hard pill to swallow for most people. The main reason the Nintendo Switch 2 at launch was able to stay at a nice $450 price range was because Nintendo already had a large stock coming over to the US beforehand, and it really made sense. It made sense more to take a $50 cut on everything that they had coming in than for them to be like, well, we gotta increase it, because that probably would have honestly killed the console. And honestly, it was a right call for them as it made their profit margins on the console way higher, because people were thinking, well, if I'm spending $450, what's the extra $50? And it seemed like the right choice. This was without a doubt an excellent launch for Nintendo. It was selling really well, people wanted one, they were out of stock multiple places. Fast forward a year later, there's a new problem, the price hike. Honestly, I saw it coming from a mile away. Multiple other consoles are doing it. It was inevitable at this point, which sparks a new problem for Nintendo and a new question for the customer. Should I buy a Nintendo Switch 2 or should I get a PS5? Now, are these consoles similar? Kinda. Not entirely, but kinda. The question could be very real, with multiple other companies coming out with their own handhelds, and Nintendo's price point is not looking too great. In my opinion, I think that the Nintendo Switch 2 has to be under that $500 price range, especially because all of the other handheld gaming PCs are already pretty high up there, and if you're going to ask yourself, what am I really wanting out of this? Am I just wanting the performance? You're gonna end up saving just couple hundred more dollars to buy a handheld gaming PC. And now with no game included in that $500 price range, it makes it a lot harder for some people to even think about buying a Nintendo Switch, especially with other consoles like the PS5 and Xbox Series S and X out there, where you have to ask yourself two questions. Do I want the access of, especially with other consoles on the market out there like the PS5 and Xbox Series S, where you have to ask yourself, do I want the novelty of being able to bring it anywhere with me? Or do I want to have a really solid gaming experience? I personally am enjoying my console. I do like playing the Nintendo Switch 2. It's a very fun console with some great games on it. But have there been some times where I've had hiccups where I'm just not playing it for a long amount of time? Yeah, like any other console. But don't take me as like this guy said to buy it, because I can't speak for everybody. With the games that are on the console right now, I just don't know if I could recommend it to someone at the current state it is in right now. For example, look to Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. This port was not only very ambitious for Nintendo and Bethesda, but also pretty impressive, getting it to run on the Switch 2 without having to use a game keycard. but I mean, it runs like hot ass. This can also be stated for Resident Evil 9. Throughout the whole game, it runs swimmingly. It runs well, there are little frame drops, and honestly, it looks pretty good, almost comparable to a PS5 version. Then out of nowhere, you get to Raccoon City and the game starts dropping frames worse than the economy in the 2008 housing crisis. Is this game an impressive port? Yes. Undoubtedly, yes. There are some areas where I showed you side by side, unlisted, which one was a Nintendo Switch 2 and which one was a PS5. You wouldn't be able to tell me. But know what I said, some areas? Yes, in some areas it looks great, but in others, my god, this is a AAA game on a next-gen console? Though, on the other hand, in some areas, like in the hospital or at the final areas of the game, the frames don't drop nearly as bad and it runs really, really well. It's irritating that in some areas that are pretty large, and a large chunk of the game kind of runs really terribly, actually. Then you have some games like Cyberpunk 2077, where it feels like a slap in the face to RE9, considering that it runs like ass in some areas. I can't tell you how many areas, I just know it's some. This isn't a problem like, oh, you were playing it while it's not docked, dude. I was playing it while it was docked. I still had these frame drop issues, and they were still relentless. Though that's not my only problem with Resident Evil 9 on the Switch. Oh, thank f***, I hate owning my games. A year later, game key cards are still here, and God, I just hate these little things. I just still don't see the point to these little cousins to the game cartridges. It makes no sense to me. With such a push by Nintendo on developers to keep using these little things, by some surely not forced reason. Though nonetheless, I still stand by the fact that this was a terrible idea from Nintendo. I mean, who on earth wants to buy a game physically and then have to download it later? And a year later, Nintendo still doesn't have any alternative sizes for their cartridges. Because of course not. Honestly, for me, it comes off as a little cheap and kind of scummy, as it feels like a way of them just padding their wallets a little bit more by not having to produce different sizes of cartridges. And you know what? A year later, the only size for a cartridge is 64 gigabytes. I want you to guess how many developers have fully used the full cartridge. That's right, none. Yeah, there's only one game that comes close to filling the full cartridge, and that's Cyberpunk 2077. But even then, there are still a few 20 or 25 gigabytes short of fulfilling it. Yeah, a year later, Nintendo hasn't filled up one of their games on a game cartridge, but they're still 64 gigabytes. Not even the Pokemon Company would put one of their games on a game cartridge because they wanted to put it on a game key card and save a little bit of cash. In fact, one of the only games that gets a little close to filling it fully is Cyberpunk 2077. And you know what? I thought I'd fill you guys in on how far I've gotten in that game on the Nintendo Switch 2. Yeah, I haven't really played this game a whole lot on the Nintendo Switch 2. But can you blame me? This is more of a game that I want when I can have it anywhere. And when I have it at home, I already have it on the PS5, so why would I spend the time and play it on the Nintendo Switch 2? It just doesn't make much sense to me. And that's kind of my whole experience with the Nintendo Switch 2 right now. I want to buy more console games that aren't exclusive to Nintendo Switch 2, but at the same time, I know that I'm not going to play them unless I'm away from my console. In fact, I've written up a nice pros and cons list that I use every time that I want to buy a game. I have been playing a lot of games that I'm really impressed with. I've played Resident Evil 7 on it, and honestly, that was my first time ever playing the game, and I was really impressed by how it ran. It was smooth, it played well, there was no frame dipping at all, though I kinda hope it would work on a next-gen console, considering it was a PS4 game. Sure, this is a pretty cynical look on the first year of the Nintendo Switch 2, but honestly, if this was on the PS5, I think I'd feel the same way. Though I could spend the rest of the video like I have shitting on the console, but honestly, I don't like doing that. I really do like this thing. It's just that I have a lot of problems with it. So I want to take some time to sing some praises about the Nintendo Switch 2. Like I said, with this third-party support, it's honestly really great. It's not terrible. I love it. It's really honestly pretty impressive. If I were stuck in a room between the choice of a Nintendo Switch 2 and an Xbox Series X, I would pick the Xbox Series S and X, so that way I could use it to sit on while I play the Nintendo Switch 2. Because, you know, it at least has games. The games that I have been playing on the Nintendo Switch 2 have been really fun, honestly. I do really like them. For example, with Tamagotchi Life Living the Dream. I have fun logging on every day and seeing what my Miis are up to. Except for you, Ted. The charm in this game is really amazing. It is so unique, and to have everyone kind of just do their own thing, I like it honestly more than Animal Crossing, even though it took a year to come out. Though I'm not too mad about that, as it was a nice way to give people a little bit of water during the drought that was between RE9 and going into Yoshi and then into Star Fox. It was a nice way to tide people over. And I am also enjoying Animal Crossing, although I don't log on as much as I would in Tamagotchi Life, but that's honestly because the Nintendo Switch 2 version didn't really add anything outside of making it look like a little nicer, I guess. I loved playing Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom with the Nintendo Switch 2 enhanced version. I think that it was probably the best version of the game that it could have been, and I haven't really played the GameCube all too much because honestly there's not much there for me. I haven't really touched the Virtual Boy Virtual Console because why the fuck would I? And I enjoyed the Nintendo 64 catalog, and I'm currently enjoying the Nintendo 64 catalog. Yet, of course, the game I keep coming back to is Mario Kart World. And after a year, I gotta say, how the hell did anyone accept this price tag? After a year, this game is still just missing something. I find it really weird that after a year, there is no new battle modes, there is no new tracks, there is no new characters, and finally, the easiest part that I think they could really implement is no traditional Grand Prix, which to me is the biggest crime of the game. Is the open world good? No, it's honestly just okay. And the game honestly feels like you're just racing in a straight line hoping to get first. But honestly, sometimes I just want to race around the same track, because the tracks in this game are honestly some of my favorite. Like I said, it's honestly very disappointing to see that there is no traditional Grand Prix mode, as this game has some of my favorite tracks in any of the Mario Kart games. I honestly love these tracks so much. They have so much charm to them. They have so many interesting elements that I wish I could see in other racing tracks in the game. Honestly, for me, nothing truly beat that first feeling of flying past the giant Bowser made of smoke at his own home domain. It was so cool. And honestly, to me, I feel like it is asinine that the game is still at the $80 price tag it is when there's nothing added to the experience. And honestly, it just feels like a wasted potential with this game. And I feel like that's the word I would use to describe the Nintendo Switch 2 after a year. Potential. I think honestly, if the Nintendo Switch 2 follows down the route that it's going, it's just gonna have a lot of potential with no real payoff. Though, if these predictions of mine start coming true, that's where it'll get interesting. Games. What do I think about the games? Alright, first on the chopping block, I do think that Nintendo will be releasing an Ocarina of Time remaster, as the Star Fox stuff was all confirmed literally 2 weeks ago, so it would make sense. I don't think that this game isn't going to come out till probably late December of 2026, maybe early January 2027. It would make a lot of sense for this to be a holiday release, so that way they can bundle it in with a bunch of other Switch 2s and get a special edition in there too. So people are like, wow, I don't have a Switch 2 yet. And now they have this special edition of this game that I really used to love. It makes sense to buy one now, especially if the game looks better and runs better than on the Nintendo 64. I'm also going to say something that people probably won't agree with me with. I don't think we're getting a 3D Mario anytime soon. Honestly, I don't see a 3D Mario happening until the mid of the second year, or maybe first half of the third year. I'm gonna say something that I'm pretty disappointed in myself with this prediction. I don't think we're gonna see the Duskbloods till probably next year. Honestly, it would only make sense. The game should have come out by now, or should have at least had something out by now, a product page, a Nintendo Direct announcement, something, but there's been nothing about it. So I don't see anything being said about that game until a good 6 months before it releases. And if they're planning on releasing it in December, which wouldn't really make sense to me in my own mind, I don't think we would hear anything about it until probably July, maybe. I'm gonna throw an oddball out there. I'm gonna say Marvel Rivals comes to Nintendo Switch before the 2-year anniversary of the Nintendo Switch 2. I know, that's kind of a crazy thing to say right now, but honestly, it would make the most sense to me. This game is the most popular PvP game out there right now. Team-based shooter. It has pretty much everything that would make a Nintendo Switch port of this game pop off. And if that seems really ambitious, that's because it is. I truly think that they can make it work. I'm also going to throw another curveball out there. Nintendo Switch 2, we're going to hear something about DS and 3DS Virtual Console. Okay, well, we just re-released that. Let's go ahead and announce that we're making a Wii Virtual Console. I don't think anyone would buy it. So now that I've got that out of the way, it's on. Okay guys, I'm sorry to burst your bubble. I don't see us getting any UI changes. It's been a year, they've had a lot of time to change it, but I don't think it's coming anytime soon. Themes I don't think will come. I don't think we'll get music on the console. I think it's gonna stay the same way that it is. So maybe next year I'll have my words eaten or whatever, but I just don't think it's gonna happen. I don't have anything to say about hardware yet. We'll come back to this at the 2nd year anniversary of the Nintendo Switch 2, as I do have some thoughts about what they could do, but it's too early to say anything now. So make sure to ring that bell so that way you'll be notified when I upload that video. Though the Nintendo Switch 2 has launched with some pretty heavy hitters, it just doesn't compare to the Switch 1. I truly do feel that the Nintendo Switch 1 was lightning in a bottle. You can't recreate it. They had the launch of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, one of the best Legend of Zelda games ever made. And then just a couple months later, after the launch, they go, we got a new 3D Mario. That was honestly like a holy shit moment for everyone in the Nintendo Switch. It was a rebirth moment from them going, the Wii U kinda was not great. We're going to make a better console for everybody, which honestly makes the Nintendo Switch 2 a harder launch and harder to compare with its predecessor. I think this is honestly due to the sheer quality games that had come out with the Nintendo Switch 1's launch and how bad the Wii U's life cycle was, especially because there was just nothing for that console. And then Nintendo goes, we're making not only a home console, but we're innovating and we're making it both a home console and a portable console? That's really hard to beat. Though after a year, I still do love the Nintendo Switch 2. It's a great console and I've had a lot of fun with it. If you asked me what my verdict was on the Nintendo Switch 2, if I thought it was a worthwhile purchase for myself, I would say the verdict is yes. It's still a Nintendo console with some really great Nintendo games and some upgrades to some older Nintendo games. Would I recommend this console though? My verdict would be maybe. If you're a person who feels like they can't live without this console, buy it. I don't know how impressed you are with it, or if your euphoria will just cloud anything negative about it, go ahead. That's all up to you. That's how I was the first year of it. But honestly, if that's not you, then I just wait for a game that comes out and you really, really, really want it. But I mean, I don't know. That's just me. And honestly, I feel like even with all the harsh stuff I said, I gotta go say something to my Nintendo Switch. Hey there, kid. You know, you're not perfect, but you're gonna do great things. And I just want you to know, I'm proud of you. Thanks, man. You aren't getting Dustclothed yet. Oh, come on! Thank you all so much for watching the video. I know I enjoyed making it. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. Tell me, what's your favorite part about the Nintendo Switch 2 after this year? If you're happy about buying it, or if you think it was a little bit of a waste. Honestly, I still do enjoy this console. I really do love it. But I don't know if you guys are gonna hear from me for a little bit. I'm planning on going on a vacation for around 2 weeks, and I'm going to record every single moment of it. And it'll be titled The Big Terrence Clown Vlog. It won't be called Terrence Clown. It'll be called Jester James. That's right, I'm starting a new channel. I'm starting a second channel. This is more of like variety stuff that I want to talk about, stuff that I want to do. Let's plays, other stuff like that, maybe live streams in the future. It just depends. But if you all are interested in that kind of stuff, go ahead, join the Jester James YouTube channel. I'm honestly really excited about it. It'll just be random stuff, maybe short films if I'm working on stuff, or just a very large variety of things. So please go subscribe to there, check it out, and make sure you subscribe here too, as about 4% of the people who watch my videos aren't subscribed. So if you like my content, please subscribe, let me know. And with that, I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.